Well, here we are again in the kitchen. Another elderly Philips design. A friend of mine over in Holland, Ben, tells me that the bell has finally tolled for Philips television sets and audio appliances. To be fair, though, to those of us that remember this sort of thing, the lights of the 2400 and all those reel-to-reels and record players, the bell tolled years ago, didn't it, when production switched to the Far East? But now they're officially giving it up and they're going off to make household appliances and medical equipment. Oddly enough, the MRI scanner that did my MRI scan some years ago was made by Philips, and I think it even had the little emblem like this. so, I mean, they could at least have put this High Fidelity International on it, couldn't they, really? But I've had these things for years and years and years, and I never did have the set that went with them. You're right to say that you can see a bit of a glimpse of light through there. They're a very strange design indeed, and you'll see why in a minute. They're very, very low profile. You see how slim it is. That is going to contain the speaker, that distance. I think there should be a lid there for the cable. Now, cables are surprisingly long on these, and the other one of the pair has had this come off, and if this happens to you when you're restoring something like this, or somebody slings something your way, don't be tempted to try and prise it off. If you do, for heaven's sakes, be careful. Use something like a fish slice or one of those old butter knives or whatever, and just gently, gently, gently work it off, because what you don't want to do is bend it, because if you bend it, well, you don't need me to tell you, you won't get another one, and neither will you get it straight again properly, and then it'll just look a mess. Now, coming over here, got the little Amstrad record player thing. Seems funny that they were still making at this stage, because it's obviously early 80s, this one, isn't it? It's all angular and black and so on. So, still making things like this. But it does work. It's not got the best sound in the world. Doesn't sound as good as an old Philips, but I mean, look at the condition of it. It's pretty well nigh on spotless, isn't it? Anyway, back to Philips speakers now. Here we have one 6-inch job, and it's fairly typical of what they used to make back then. A ceramic magnet on the back, usual sort of basket, spider up inside there, of course, to centralise the voice coil, and then on the front the dual cone assembly. Not all of them had this whizzer cone in the middle, but quite a few did, and a foam gasket just to seal it up. Now, what they did with the funny speakers was this. You see, the basket is the same, but all you've got here is a distance piece and then a machine screw, and the terminals are mounted here and there. And there is the reason why. The magnet is on the front of it, driving backwards. It's a much smaller affair than the earlier design used. You used to end up with a frame with spokes radiating out. The magnet, which was as big as that, was hidden away underneath the frame, along with the spider, which was in front of the cone rather than behind it. So I should imagine that this speaker probably reduced costs, because a lot of the parts were the same as a bog standard one, shall I say. And you'd find these in the 504 and 604 record player as well. Now, I thought for years that the speakers must have come with a record player, because so far as I knew, there were plenty of Philips models where the speakers form the lid, if you like. And they do have that look, don't they, those? But no, they didn't come with a record player. They actually came with a reel-to-reel tape recorder, the N4408. And if you Google it, you'll see it. It was a stereo set produced in the very late 60s, stereo 4-track. much along the lines of my Pi, I would imagine, which is based on the 4407. And that was what they came with. As far as I know, that was the only one that Philips ever made that was like that, where the speakers form the lid. I believe Sony made a couple, or probably more than that. Sanyo, I think, did it, but it tended to be more a Japanese thing, reel-to-reels with speakers in the lid. But after that, perhaps because these speakers are quite difficult to drive, they haven't got the best bass in the world, shall I say. Philips went for built-in speakers in the sides of the set, and you could, if you wanted to, plug in better speakers and mute the speakers in the reel-to-reel itself. That's something my Pi will do. So, yeah, interesting to see the evolution. Now, the speakers were absolutely bloody filthy when I opened them up. Horrible mess, all full of dust and rubbish from years and years and years. So I've put them in biological washing powder in the sink. They're so big, actually, they had to go in one by one. So among all the dishes and pots and pans, a pair of speakers has been washed up today as well. If you do that, for heaven's sakes, do take out all the electrical stuff, and obviously especially the speakers, because if you, well, particularly if you mess one of these up, you've had it. And the same is true if you're thinking about, there's a chap contacted me a while ago now, last week, and he had the remains of a 604 record player with a dud germanium amplifier, and what he's going to do is to put a different amplifier in it using the TDA 2009 chip, which is apparently a very good chip indeed. And at the voltage the little Philips produces or runs on, about 9 volts, because it's 6 HP2 or D batteries, it'll be just fine. But if you do this sort of thing, don't be tempted to gun it too much, because again, if you burn it out, you are buggered, because the casings on the speakers that sort of thing come with are built for this speaker, or an inside out speaker, and the magnet can't be accommodated, it won't accommodate the extra depth. So there we are, all I've got to do now is put that back together again. It's a bit of a pig because the screw holes are quite deep, and in the usual Phillips way for the time, they're slotted head, they're not, well, Phillips screws. But, well, we shall see. Here's the front of the other one, and you can see what they've done. They just put epoxy glue along there and stuck that metal piece with High Fidelity International to that. So I'm going to have to do the same presently. Anyway, enough of me rambling on. I shall see you soon, I expect. Bye for now.